20 squats, arms out the balance. Going to work on knee position as always, trying to open up, add a little pause in there, work your way into the bottom position. If you feel a little bit tight, go progressively deeper as we start to loosen off. Remember, ideally on our squat, we're trying to bring the crease of our hip level with our knees. As you see the nice lines on my shorts, or my tracky bottoms should be parallel to the ground. Keeping your back nice and flat. The arms for counterbalance will help you keep position. And have your feet very slightly turned out. As you come up, squeeze the glutes slightly. As you go down, push the knees out, make space. So you try and keep your spine as upright as possible. Another half a dozen. Last 3, 2, and 1. Okay, from there we're going to reverse lunges. So we're going to step back, lower that back knee towards the floor, and drive up the powers from the front leg. Do about 20 reps. As you lower down, try and keep your knee very slightly pushed outwards, but don't let the arch of the foot roll off the floor or the big toe lift up. So try and get that tripod on the ground, the big toe just behind the little toe, and then the heel. Keeping that loaded through that mid-foot. On the knee to tickle the floor, nice tall spine. Don't step back too far yet. This will be prepping us for the next phase into the quad stretches and hip flexor stretches. Lost count, but last 5. Okay, from there, step back into the hip flexor stretch. So bring the pelvis forward, find the first stretch, front of the thigh, hold that position, make sure the pelvis is tilted slightly, so you're tucking the pelvis underneath, getting a stretch in the upper quad, hip flexor region, squeeze the glutes, hold that for 3 or 4 seconds, relax the glute and try and edge further forward. So we're gently dropping further forward and stretch. Maintain that position, ignore me and let someone else into the class. Okay, progressively increasing. So if you squeeze again, relax. You're just trying to work your way into it. If you feel there's more to get, another contraction, relax and drop it a little bit further forward. And one last time, squeeze, relax, and drop. Then we're going to add to it. The same leg I'm stretching, that arm up on that side. I'm going to bend away from the side I'm stretching. I'm going to slightly turn the rib cage back to the side I'm stretching. So I'm lengthening the other side, I'm pulling through the hip flexors, component that attaches the lumbar spine. Coming out the stretch, use the front leg. Push yourself back with that front leg, and keep these nice and relaxed. Then we're going to change the sides. So again, find the first point of stretch, creep forward. When you find the first point, the tissues engage, hold that position, squeeze the glute. You can palpate the glute to make sure the glute's contracting, and relax, and go further forward. Hang out in that new position for a few seconds, then repeat, squeeze the glute, relax it, try and edge further forward. So each time, you try and take a benefit of the relaxation phase of the muscle after you've contracted the opposing muscle. So we're squeezing the glute again, and then we exploit that benefit, relax, and open up one more time. If you feel that's as far as you've got, we'll come to the next phase. The same leg, the same arm. I'm going to side bend away from the side I'm stretching. I'm going to turn the ribcage a few degrees towards the side I'm stretching. So you might feel that track up a little bit. Could be around the side of the waist, could be your lats. Or just pick out whichever's tightest. You can increase the angles as you relax into it. Gently side bend further, gently rotate further. Again, use the front leg, push yourself back out of that. From there, we're going to a sideline quad stretch. So I'm going to open up one more level. So from here, we're going to grab the underside leg. So legs on the floor, I grab the foot. I'm going to pull the knee backwards. From there, I'm trying to bring my heel to bum. And then I'm going to rotate forward, let the knee slide out across the ground. And then from there, use the foot to push you back round into your side position. You can also slightly turn the shoulder, and that will mobilize the upper spine, and then repeat. Just sweep through. You've got a particularly tight bit. So if I've got a tight bit just here, I can just go up to that barrier, come back out of it, and back in. And each time I just try to release that and get it further. You can also contract by pushing the foot into the hand. And then as I relax, I bring the foot further in to get more of a stretch. Okay, change sides for me. Change my screen. So again, it's the underside leg that you're going to be stretching. You're going to pull the foot towards the glutes. You're going to make sure you pull the knee back far enough to open up the top of the hip, just as we're on the hip flexor stretch. You can move the foot. You can also rotate from face down, trying to bring your pubic bone towards the ground. So I'm pushing my pelvis down, and also pushing where the belt line is. You're trying to push the top of the pelvis down as well. The side line, from here I can turn the shoulder around a few degrees, mobilize the spine, and also rotate the lower spine, the lumbar. Again, just find tight areas. You can also relax and contract. If I'm struggling to get any further, I can push my foot into my hand and resist that for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and I relax. Try and increase the range of motion. Either knee back more or heel to bum. Last few seconds. And then we're going to go into the next part. We're going to stretch the front of the shoulder next. So we're going to stay on the floor. Just going to change my position. I'm going to stretch this arm. So I place this arm flat down. My right arm is flat, the palm is flat, the shoulder's in the ground. I'm going to use this foot and this hand to gently turn the rib cage away from the hand I'm stretching. You must keep your shoulder relaxed on the ground though. On the first tissue barrier, across the front of the shoulder. And then as it starts releasing, I'm just going to creep round a few more degrees. Again, breathe, relax. You can also gently contract. So to do that, you just gently push your upper arm and elbow down towards the floor for a few seconds. And then as you relax, you're just trying to get another degree or two of rotation. Make sure the stretch straight stays across the front of the shoulder, maybe the bicep. It shouldn't be in the shoulder joint though. A few more seconds, and then we're going to change sides. So we switch over, palm flat down, use the leg, use the hand, turn to the first tissue barrier, to the front of the shoulder, stabilize myself, breathe and relax, and breathe through the nose into the abdomen. If I want to contract and relax, I can gently push the upper arm, front of the elbow, or the crease of the front of the arm into the ground. 3 or 4 seconds and relax that, and then try and get another couple of degrees rotation. Opening up. This is going to help some of the quadruped patterns that we're lifting our arms up. By opening the front of the shoulder up, it will help us get a better position. So we'll benefit by that in the workout. Okay, next phase. We're going to go into building off that. We're going to open the shoulders up and the upper spine. So it's going to be a quadruped position, and we're adding a rotation. So it looks like this. We're going to start on all fours. We're going to bring our fingers to our temples. We're going to bring our elbow down to the hand on the ground. Then we're going to push away from the floor whilst rotating. We're trying to look up, go to the first tissue barrier. Just feel the restriction, come back down and repeat. 8 repetitions. As you breathe in, exhale at the top. So breathe in the way down, breath comes in. As I come around, I exhale out. Now just help you get a few more degrees rotation. So trying to really open the front of the chest up. If you're tight in the shoulders, don't worry so much about where the arm's going. We'll just demonstrate the rib cage. Worry about where the rib cage is turning round. Last couple. Okay, change sides. So again, fingers to temples, quadruped position. Elbow touches the floor. Rotate, first tissue barrier. Hopefully some of these movements you'll get a little bit further on each repetition. If you also look round, it's going to help your brain work out where you're trying to go. So just looking over my shoulder, look to the sky. You'll also come all the way down to the bottom, make sure you touch that elbow to the hand by rotating through the spine still. Last repetition. Okay, first round warm-up done. Next phase. So we'll move that camera very slightly. We're going to go into some core work. It's a bit of a warm-up for the next phase. So we're going to really be thinking about the detail here, so that we can hopefully use that in the next level. So from here, ribs, pelvis. So if I talk about crunching, we're talking about bringing the ribs and the pelvis together. We're not going to be doing old school full crunches in this position today. We're just trying to focus on the core, not the hip flexors. So what you'll be doing, fingers and temples, bring your ribs to your pelvis, hold that position for a couple of seconds, control down. Let the head touch the ground. I also want you to swallow and hold the tongue where it finishes, which will be behind the front teeth in the roof of the mouth. So slow movement, really think about the ribs and pelvis, both sides. We're just starting to engage. This is not the hard part of the workout. This is just priming the nervous system, what's going to be happening. So if I say in the movements later on, think about tightening your core. Think about this sensation, what it feels like, this bracing effect. Last couple of reps. And then we're going to work slightly more into the lower fibers of the abdominal wall by doing leg lowers. So from here, we're going to use our fingers. We're going to place them in our lumbar spine. That should be opposite your belly button. The fingers will touch together. Then you're going to compress your lower back into your fingers. You're going to lift both legs off the ground. If you struggle with this and you lose the pressure on your fingers, place one leg down. But if we can, we're going to simply lengthen. And if you start losing pressure against your fingers at the end position, don't go quite as fast. You might decide to stop there. You might decide to go a bit further. You're going to pick the level that's suitable for yourself. But you've got to keep pushing the fingers or compressing the fingers with your lower back. It should be quite challenging. It's easy to do it without the pressure, but that's not what we're trying to achieve here. And work really hard through the end range, particularly as you start coming back through. That's where you might lose control. So this is all about neuromuscular control. It's about the detail of each movement, which muscle fibers are firing up at which points. This is more about the internal obliques, which are lower. They tilt the pelvis backwards, and also the lower fibers of the abdominal wall. Last couple of reps. So if we're doing dead bugs, you're going to be thinking about the same thing, pushing that lower back flat into the ground. Okay, pause there. Next phase. We're going to go into a quadruped pattern again. This time we're going to do a simple opposite arm and leg reach. What we're doing, what you're thinking about, keep your pelvis level, your shoulders level, and only go as high as you can keep everything nice and still. Again, it's a detail about how still you can keep your spine. Imagine my spine like a coffee table. You put a cup of coffee on either end of it, you won't spill it. So if I start dropping or over-rotating, you're going to lose the position. Just before you lift up, you should be feeling your abdominals engage and brace in anticipation to stabilize what will become unstable as you take one arm and leg away. And don't think about lifting or reaching the floor, think about reaching long. So I'm reaching my foot towards the wall behind me. I'm reaching my arm as if it was overhead. My thumbs to the ceiling. It'll also help fire some of the muscles that depress the shoulder blades down. The last couple of reps. Okay, level 1 quadruped. Next one. We're going to stand ourselves up. We're going to go into a little balance. So the last few weeks we've been doing progressively harder balance exercises. We're just going to jump in at the harder level here, which is a touchdown. So I'm looking for you to keep your pelvis level. So as I lift my leg up, my pelvis does not lift up, It does not drop down, really important. Lift the leg up, opposite hand, either come to your knee, come all the way up afterwards, or to your shin, or, depending on flexibility, to the ground. I'm trying to let you keep your lower back, or whole spine in fact, neutral. So keep your back flat. So go to the level that suits your flexibility. Could be the knee. If you're more flexible in the hamstrings, you might go a bit lower. As you come back up, think about, is that pelvis still level? Last couple. And obviously we're trying to feel the foot working, trying to strengthen some of those intrinsic muscles of the foot and the lower limb. Okay, change sides. If you struggle with balance, picking your focal point can help, or focal point on the ground in front so you can keep your eyes on that as you come down. That will help you control your balance. So on the flip side, if you want to make it harder, you could do things like move your head around, or you could, if you're feeling brave, you can close your eyes. I wouldn't suggest that at this tempo though. Again, keep that pelvis level, keep the back flat. Should be feeling your glutes and your hamstrings working. So that top position, fully extend the knee and the hip out. What's my focal point? So again, keep your focal point. Last repetition. So this is a bit of a warm up when we do ice skaters later on. Okay, next one. We're going to do what's called a serratus push up. It's like a plank. We're going to be pushing ourselves away from the floor. So you're actually going to push yourself into a bad posture. You're going to round your back. But we're going to be strengthening muscles that pull the shoulder blades down and into the rib cage. When you relax, you'll just let your spine drop slightly. Then we come straight back up. We're going to hold the top position for about 5 seconds, about 3 seconds. So, hands wherever you're comfortable. The elbows are meeting underneath the shoulders. We're going to start by dropping slightly. Keep your hollow, so keep your abs braced, link ribs to pelvis. We're pushing away from the floor, let our upper back round for 3, 2, 1. We lower down. You can drop near the floor if you've got flexibility. Push away from the floor through the elbows. Round that upper back and hold that position. 3, 2, 1. Again, lower. Notice I'm not arching my back. I'm keeping my abs engaged. So I'm thinking ribs to pelvis, pelvis to ribs the whole time. And I keep that engagement. I lower. We're focusing the upper back here. Yes, you're using your core to work, but this is shoulder stabilization work. Again, push. 3, 2, 1. Last rep. Keep nice tight abs. Push away. 3, 2, 1, and relax. So again, that's good. So core work is not just about stabilizing your spine, we're also looking at the shoulder girdle, how the shoulder blades interact with the rib cage and the spine. Okay, next part. We're going to go into a sequence of about 10 exercises, progressively getting harder. I'm going to use either reps or approximate time, depending on what exercise is. So first one, dead bugs. Remember, every exercise, I want you to think about how it felt when you pulled the ribs to pelvis and braced. So that's our goal. That's what we did the first part of the workout, which was to warm up. So dead bugs, simple as, remember, I want the knee line up the hip. Do not want you doing a dead bug in this position. If this, you're going to maintain this, toes towards shins, palms face each other. I'm pushing my lower back into the ground. I'm keeping my pelvis in a fixed position. And you might find that as you do some of these, you start migrating into an easier position, which I find myself trying to do. So I'm just going to reinforce that my knees don't start drifting forward. I'm trying to keep that knee over the hip. I want to make this as hard as possible for myself. It's not about how many I do, it's about how effective it is for developing my coordination and my strength in the correct position. Let's do another half a dozen. As that leg gets longer, I reinforce pushing the pelvis and the lower back down. As you can hear, voice is shaking slightly. I'm starting fatigue. So if I start to fatigue, I tighten my technique up. If I can't, I will stop at that point. And rest. So if you're doing this by yourself at home, you've got more strength and endurance than I have, please do carry on. If you have less, stop and rest and listen to your body. Next one, we're going to do a quad crunch. So it's going to be elbow and knee will come together. So what I'm going to do, I'll do it this side. I'm going to stick on one side and then we'll change over. So we're going to do about 10 repetitions. So I'm going to go from a lengthened position. I'm going to bring my knee and elbow together. I want to flex equally across my lower back and my upper back. So if I drew a line between my hand and my foot that's on the ground, I'm trying to let my knee and hand, or knee and elbow, meet in that plane. So it wants to meet about here. What you don't want to do is overly reach backwards or overly flex forward. We're just trying to smoothly share the motion. Obviously, top position, we're keeping nice alignment with the spine, we're not letting the back arch. So we're flexing, coming back to neutral. Last rep. And change sides. Start from lengthened position. Again, imagine that line on the floor between your hand and knee, and try and let the elbow and knee meet in that imaginary line, and they should get to that position at the same time as each other. When you come back up, try and get back to neutral, don't lift too high. So I'm just reaching my foot back towards the wall, and my hand if it's overhead. Thumb points up still. Last 3. And rest. Okay, next one. Give me a second. We'll be doing side planks next. We're going to do an easy version of a side plank. Mainly because if you do the advanced version, most people have the core strength, but not the shoulder stability. So we're going to, rather than be on our feet, we're going to be on our knees. So we're going to make it dynamic. We're going to be on our elbow. My knees are here. So imagine a straight line. My hips slightly back, but as I lift up, my hips come forward into that imaginary position. We're then going to lower down, hips to the floor, and lift back up. We do about 10 repetitions. We might do this again later on if we do add another level to this. So I'm looking more for the control. For a lot of you, this will be more stretching some of those muscles in the lower back. Something called quadratus lumborum. It's a really important muscle that can get tight on people. So this is a bit of a stretch for it. We're putting length and strength into the tissue. So not particularly the hardest exercise, but it's again about the control and keeping my pelvis facing forward. I'm not letting it rotate. And then change over sides. So I start, I've got lines in the floor here, so I can use that elbow and knee on that line. My pelvis is set back. When I lift up, my pelvis comes forward to meet that line. I'm going to try and stay on that line, hips down, lift back up. You might possibly notice you have one strongest side. Ideally, you'll try and even out your strength. We do a few extra reps on the weak side. Obviously, bring the shoulders back, chest forward. Remember, we're doing the easy version here so that it doesn't overly stress the shoulder joints. Let's do 5 more. And then we'll go on to the next exercise, which will be a crunch. So when we do that, we'll be thinking again, ribs to pelvis, but we're going to add another dimension to it. We did this one last week. It will be the side bend. So we're using our obliques again. So the combination of 2 should get the obliques quite fatigued. So from here, sequence will be, we are going to lift up and crunch, slide one side, slide the other side, back to neutral, back down. Again, swallow, place your tongue and roof of the mouth behind the front teeth. When you lift up, you're thinking ribs to pelvis, your lower back should be flat on the ground still. So I crunch, I feel that tightness, I feel the ribs and pelvis come closer together and maintain that position throughout. When I lengthen them, let the head come back down. Crunch. Don't strain on the sides. Only go as far as you feel very comfortable. It's not a big range of motion that we've got available here in the lumbar spine. If you start fatiguing, you take a couple of more seconds rest between repetitions. And if you feel it's really easy, don't lower down at the end. Just stay up the top position and just crunch, but don't go too quick. Keep control. Or we'll mix it up as I did. I'll do a couple of each. Have a little rest in another rep. Again, keep the tongue pushed in the roof of the mouth. I haven't said why today. Some of you know that already. It's about activating the deep cervical flexors. It will stop you overusing muscles more superficial. If they get too tight, will pull your head out of position. And you're not coming to see me as an osteopath because you have tight neck and shoulders. Last rep or two. We start there and relax. Okay, next one from there. Going to make it a little bit easier with a bit more coordination. We are doing kneeling flexion extension. Key to understand is that you are trying to move vertebrae by vertebrae. So imagine a chain reaction. I'm going to tilt forward. I'll do the easy version, my arms are relaxed. I tilt forward from my head, from my hips, should I say, as far as I can go, keeping my back flat as long as possible. Then I will lower from the lumbar spine, segmentally through, and eventually through my cervical spine, my neck. Then I recover the same sequence. The head comes back, I start pulling up from the neck, through the upper spine, until I get back to neutral. That will depend on your flexibility when that happens. And I come back out using the hamstrings and lower back. I repeat. But to make it a bit harder, fingers at temples. It does depend on how heavy your hips are, otherwise you might find you fall over. Go as far as I can, and then start flexing through the spine. So we're thinking one vertebra at a time. My head's the last thing to release. Bring the head back up, come up through the upper spine. And when I've got neutral, as you get into this, you can make it a little bit faster. We only work as fast as your coordination allows and the control you have. So again, it's not a neuromuscular control exercise. All that coordination of actually what we're doing is some of the very, very small muscles that attach from vertebrae to vertebrae segmentally, and some that overlap three or four vertebrae at a time called multifidus. We're trying to strengthen those up. We're not trying to strengthen the big muscles up that you might use in your deadlift. Those get too strong. We're trying to work on the weaker muscles. Last couple of reps. Hold neutral as long as you can. Then I flex through the lumbar, I flex through the thoracic, I flex through the cervical, I extend through the neck or cervical, extend through the thorax or thoracics, and then back through the lumbar. Last rep. Okay, that was an easy one to give you a rest. Next one, going to up the tempo slightly. We are going to go into plank jacks. So, we know a plank, we're going to do it on our hands. The jack is feet together, feet out. You are going to hold a hollow though. So on a nice tight hollow position, ribs to pelvis, pelvis to ribs, and not losing that. It's easy to do when you're bending the spine, but I want you bracing. I'm going to jump and pause. Now, if you can keep everything tight, you can go a little bit quicker. But if you struggle to keep the contraction of your abdominal wall, go a bit slower. I will leave it up to you how fast you go. And you're trying to keep your knees relatively soft. I don't want to see a big knee bends. You're trying to keep nice and tight and bounce. Arms locked out the elbows. Keep bracing. The whole time reinforce what's happening. Wherever you fatigue, you have to rest with your shoulders. Last 5 reps. Okay, so we're just trying to make it a little bit harder to keep the contraction. Obviously, your core, in the real world, you're dynamic. We're trying to make sure we can control our body in motion, not just on the floor. Next one, YTLs. Y position. We're going to be face down. We're going to do a Superman. Bottom rib stays on the ground, glutes are engaged. The Y is this position, thumbs to the ceiling. The T is this position with our shoulder blades coming together and our palms face down. The L, I'm not very good at the L, I'm a bit tight in my shoulders, but we're going to come inwards. If you can keep the wrists out further, great. And we're going to rest between reps. So we start in this position, we squeeze the glutes, we lift, we come to the T, we come to the L. We can either rest in between reps, or we can sequence them together. So Y,
T, L. You must be able to keep your glutes engaged. If you do not, your lower back muscles will become a little bit too dominant, and that's not our goal. So if you fatigue this position, lower down between reps, take a couple of seconds out, squeeze the glute before you come back in. I will leave it up to you, the technique you do. I'm going to stick with this variation, where I hold my position, and I go through those positions, the Y, the T, and the L. The goal is for upper back muscles, rhomboids, trapezius, for them to be working. And they are stabilized as they pull the shoulders back. We help depress them as well. We're also working on the rotator cuff muscles, particularly the L position. Last 5. Last 3. Last rep. And rest. From there, we're going to go into an ice skater. And we're flying through today. It's good, okay. So I know some of you know how to do ice skaters. I know you do sometimes in the We Train classes, but I'm looking for the control. I'm looking to keep your pelvis level. You can keep your hands to the hips if it helps. You can use the arms, but you're not allowed to let this leg pass behind. Let me show you a good rep. Pause. Pause. Bad rep. I'm not doing that. We don't see tennis players do that. We're about stabilizing and change direction. So start with small hops. Hop and stabilize. Hop and stabilize. And you can make it a little bit quicker, but you've got to show me the control, keeping my pelvis level. Obviously make sure if you're on a carpet at home, don't slip. If that's the case, I suggest smaller steps. Look at those thighs to stay parallel, a small gap between them, the pelvis rotary level, dodgy rep there. So we do a bad rep as I did, try to make sure the next one is a nice clean rep. So we're trying to use what's called glute medius, is a major stabilizer of the pelvis, one to push off, and the other side stabilizes, which is why I put in both phases in. A power phase, lost it, and a balance phase. 10 more, 9. And if you do as I did, lost control, get back control before you go to the next one. You can use the arms, but I don't start letting the legs shoot behind me. Okay, take a pause. Okay, next one. We're going to go into a plank with a hand to foot touch. It's a bit like going into a downward dog. Keep your legs as straight as you can. You've got a couple of options. This is going to pick up another strength and requirements of range of motion in the shoulder girdle and in the hamstrings. If you're a little bit tight in either, you might have to adapt your range of motion. I'll show you an ideal position, but if you don't get that far, it doesn't matter. It's about the control and the intent. So we're going to start in a plank position. You need to make sure your hands do not slip on your carpet. If you're on a carpet, put your mat on the ground. Your feet should be on the mat, and that will anchor the mat to the ground. From here, opposite hand comes the toe, and then we change sides. Please be careful you do not slip. I practiced earlier on a wooden floor, and I struggled. So we're trying to keep our hamstrings, or our legs straight, stretching the hamstrings. But if you need to, you can bend the knee slightly, but come back out into a neutral plank. Take the shoulder as far as you can, but again, if you've got tight shoulders, you might have to compromise slightly. Ideally, try to push the head all the way through, and our arm will be in a nice straight position. But be safe and do the version that works for you. Back to your plank. Let's do another half a dozen. Last couple. And those with kettlebells at home, you can use a kettlebell. You can place the kettlebell between your feet and then retrieve it. So you can add another dimension to it, make it a little bit tougher if you wish. Okay, from there, we're going back into a set of YTLs. That will take us around the first 10 exercises. We'll probably pick a couple of them out, repeat them. If you're at home though, you can take any of these sequences, you can put them in whatever structure you want, you can go through the whole sequence a couple of times or 3 times, or do clusters of a few of the movements and put them into a little mini circuit. It's completely up to you. We're going to have YTLs though, mainly because these are the areas that most of us need to improve, particularly homeschooling and working out computers too much. So squeeze the glutes, lift, put the bottom ribs in the ground still, or the upper lower sternum. T, L. Thumbs in the Y, hands high. Palms down, in the T, shoulder blades come together. Elbows tuck in the L, and repeat. If you start feeling lower back kick in, I suggest you rest or squeeze your glutes harder. And if that doesn't resolve by squeezing your glutes, your lower back is still overactive, take a rest because you are fatiguing. And we have not just strength, we have strength, endurance. It's quite possible that you might start fatiguing and some of the stabilizing muscles as the more dynamic muscles try and take over. Do 5 more. Last rep. Y, the T, the L, and rest. Okay. Just reset this. Okay, today, guys, what we're going to do, because in this lockdown 3.0, I have not done 4 core stretches. I know that you'll know 4 core stretches, but I'm going to do this today for the benefit of people who maybe watch this later on who haven't seen it before. So we're going to go through 4 core stretches to finish off. So, foot is on the thigh. I'm going to show the back position as well. My heels tucked into my bottom. Then from there, the elbow comes to the ground. It's a bit like standing up, stretching your quad. In that, the knee, the hip, and the shoulder are in a straight line. From here, we're going to rotate the pelvis. If your front leg's too far forward, you can't rotate. So if I slide that leg back a bit, I can rotate and try and open up the front of the thigh, as was earlier. Now this is less important because we've already stretched our hip flexors and quads, so we can jump into the next level and we add the side bend. Now we're not going to hang out here too long either, because in our warm-up we also did this. But if you're doing this as a separate cool down, you can just use the 4 core stretches and spend more time in the first 2 components. What we're going to focus on is the second part of it. This hand on the ground is going to push me round. I'm going to sweep low so my belly button's over my thigh. And then I'm going to start stretching my glutes. I'm going to reposition slightly. So from here, my belly button's over my thigh. I'm going to try and lay myself down, vertebrae by vertebrae, over my thigh. Go to the first point of stretch. It could be some of you are up in this position. But ideally, I'm going to try and lay myself down. And as I exhale, I'll try and go further. So a little breath in. As I exhale, try and drop a bit lower. Now if you're at this position, this is where you'll be trying to drop lower. So you get breath in here. As I exhale, go to the next tissue barrier. So don't try and force yourself into a position. Let your body drop and relax into position. And that way you have more chance of holding the benefit. So hopefully you're feeling a stretch in your glutes. If you're not, you must be pretty bendy and that's fine. Then from there, the most important part of this stretch routine is the lower back. I'm going to walk myself around, keeping low. I'm going to line myself up so that where my thigh is, I've got nice lines on my trousers, you can see. My hands are opposite that, so it's an imaginary square. Point 1, my hip. Point 2, my knee. Point 3 is here. Point 4 is there. And then from there, I'm going to line myself down so the side where you can see more clearly. As I exhale, I'm trying to get the floor. Now I can easily get one elbow down. That elbow kind of could force it, but I'm not going to force anything here. I'm going to breathe. Exhale. With every breath, I'm trying to get a little bit further, and now I can comfortably get the elbow down. The goal is to bring the ribcage to the floor. Let yourself move slightly on the breath in if you need. So I'll lift up a little bit, make space to breathe. As I exhale, I'll try and drop a bit lower. Goal is to get at the bottom, you're lying on the floor, your head's looking towards the front knee. and you feel like you go to sleep. But I'm still let my body rise up to take the breath in. I want the breath into the abdomen and then into the rib cage. That will stretch tissue around the thorax. And that's when I can get a bit more rotation and release. To come out of it, use your hands. Push yourself up and out to keep the muscles you just stretched as relaxed as possible. We're going to change sides. We're going to bring the heel to bottom on the back leg. The front leg blocked out by the foot. Knee, hip, elbow in a straight line. If you haven't got a stretch here, rotate forward, or maybe even walk this elbow back a fraction so you get some stretch in the front of the thigh. Hold that for just a few seconds. Like I said earlier, if you haven't stretched your quads out, you spend longer in this position. Or if you're tight here, you spend longer. We're going to add the arm to it. I can tweak movements here. I can gently rotate the pelvis forward. I can add a few more degrees. I can try different angles of rotation to my armpit. And you'll just slightly get different areas of the body you're stretching. Armpit down is a bit more lower back. But we're going to use this other hand to sweep, and we're going to end up laying on our front leg, stretching our glute on the leg we're lying on. Breath in, always move on the exhalation. Sweep round. Go to a position that you can get to, and then start your breathing and relaxing from there. I'm going to start down here. I'm pretty bendy, so I'll breathe and relax in this position. And I'm still letting myself lift, decrease space to breathe in the abdomen. Drop down a bit lower on exhalation. So you can get the head to the ground, do so. And your back muscles run all the way from the pelvis to the base of the skull. We've got lots of different layers, but that's ultimately where they attach different levels of connective tissue. Now, if you've got long legs, you might not get as low down. If you've got short legs and long spine, you'll get your head to the floor. Okay, from there, we're going to walk around. For the benefit of this, I'm going to move again so you can see more clearly. I'm going to walk around that imaginary box. The other day someone asked what the imaginary box was. Just literally imagine you're joining dots. Dot 1, my hip. Dot 2, my knee. Dot 3, my left hand. Dot 4, my right hand. Place the elbows where the hands were. That's a bit of a stretch on that side, so I'm going to hang out here. Breathing in through the nose. Exhale through the mouth. Use your breath to move the tissue. Also note, do you have one tighter side on this particular stretch? If you do, it has a potential to create scoliosis. So really important to try and even out tension in this stretch. Nice, slow, deep breaths. Do not have a tug of war with the nervous system. Breathe and relax into each stretch. When you can, bring the ribcage to the floor. And the head turns towards the front knee. Now hang out here for a few seconds. Now if you're tight, you spend longer in each phase of this stretch. Ideally, you would work in each stretch as long as you need to get to the end position. Those of you more bending, you would just go through a sequence to try and take tension back out if you did a hip workout, or just to maintain the flexibility you have. And ladies and gents, that's the nearest we've got to finish on time. Guys, thank you for coming along.